Hello. So today, mention of another candidate to add to our list of possible role models of individuals, mainly from history, who have embodied seemingly masculine and feminine traits. And today, the 11th century priestess, anchorite, and mystic, Christina of Markyate. Markyate being in, I believe, Huntingdonshire, near St Albans, the ancient capital actually of England at one point, where there was and still is, to my knowledge, a famous abbey. Christina defied the expectations of women of her time, of that medieval period, which was to be subordinate, not to have any authority within the church, and essentially to dedicate their lives to their husbands and to child rearing. She escaped a marriage and later had it annulled by disguising herself as a man, and she became a nun, much revered by her contemporaries, both male and female. So this included the abbot of St Albans, who regarded her as a spiritual counsel, very wise, and other monks as well, who turned to her for spiritual instruction, totally overturning the usual way that things were done in terms of male and female roles at that time. She was similarly regarded as someone who embodied, personified both masculine and feminine traits. So someone who was a hermit, deeply compassionate and devotional, what might be regarded as feminine traits, but also at the same time described as a manly woman of courage. And not least, perhaps, because she had defied her parents, she had run away, she'd had great courage in standing firm, in establishing a convent, and in declaring herself worthy of teaching men, teaching others. So someone that demonstrated this great courage as well, and being a leader as well, often, again, leadership at that time, especially being associated with male authority over female submission. She was also seen as someone who exercised great self-control and resistance to her bodily temptations. Again, at that time, it was believed widely, seemingly in society, that women were less able to control themselves than men. I think we probably live in a bit more of an enlightened times now, but certainly at that time, that was seemingly regarded to be a masculine quality. And she was someone who demonstrated great agency. She was independent. She was courageous. She took off and went outward. All of those actions demonstrated what would have been seen as masculine traits. So, a very interesting character. I must confess I don't know very much about her. It seems that she was very influential amongst her own community and very highly regarded. Now, I think when you look at someone like Christina of Markyate, there's always the question of as to whether she did what she did because she had to in order to conform within a male-dominated society. The disguise she took on to escape, and perhaps adopting the manner of a man in order to be accepted within that community. And I think probably there are certainly many situations when that absolutely is true, that women took on the role of men and played up perhaps or developed masculine qualities in order to conform to the gender norms of their day. And in so doing, perhaps point out to us that gender itself is constructed, that we can play a role when it's in our interests or when it's demanded of us. But I think there's something more about Christina that we can point to here. It wasn't all about that. She was a nun, first and foremost. She was an anchorite. So her community was not just restricted, or didn't have to be restricted, to men. And indeed, she became eventually the head of this community of nuns at Markyate Priory. This, according to the record, was established in 1145. So someone who very much wasn't necessarily just performing, taking on these roles in order to pursue the course that she wanted, but someone that actively demonstrated these qualities. So for those reasons, I think she is a worthy candidate for our list of potential role models of individuals who personify the masculine and the feminine and show how they could be combined in balance to live a very fulfilling and wholesome life.